What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay Rich, back to another episode of Across the Pod with my main man Tom, ready to get you prepped for game week 3. Bit up and down from game week 1 to game week 2, but we told you, hold on to Joao Pedro, and boy, did he deliver for the pod team in game week 2. Tom, we're going to waste no time. We're going to get straight into it. Let's get into game week 3, and please tell me why I should be buying Cunha and Mbeumo like I talked to you about last week. They have the highest odds in terms of goals to be scored. Great clean sheet odds as well against Burnley this week. But how are you feeling about United after what we saw just last night?
It's a difficult one, isn't it, when you lose to Grimsby on penalties, and with Cunha and Mbeumo both missing penalties as well. It's a really interesting one with United assets this week. Cunha's already risen to 8.1 despite not getting a single return in the first 2 game weeks, but I think people were looking at the promise of how United played. I think we kind of spoke about it before the pod on how low United's confidence are probably going to be this week. And even though they're the most transferred players in, Cunha and people looking at Mbeumo, I think both of them side by side are very good assets. I just don't know how much people are looking at this Burnley at home fixture and not looking ahead past Burnley, because I don't think United look fantastic fixtures past this Burnley at home. And I think with Amorim, you saw him in his interview, looks like asking his players, going out there and saying they didn't play for me. So for me, I think there's a lot better value. I just can't warrant paying 8 million for a United midfielder when you can get much better assets, and we can talk about some of those assets in a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. So obviously you have Chelsea once again right at the top of the total goals scored. Tottenham, surprisingly, against Bournemouth. That should be a pretty exciting game, and I know we're excited for that. Yeah. City, of course, Haaland with the top odds to score. Once again, we have the great fixture between Liverpool and Arsenal, and seeing how that plays out. But is there anything else that kind of you're looking at this week that you're targeting potentially? Chris Wood already at 7.7, risen twice. Ekitike scored again against Newcastle, and kind of see how he looks in that Arsenal fixture. But is there anything you're targeting this week in terms of these games and kind of what you're looking for?
I think that Forest fixture at West Ham, I'm surprised it's only 1.67 goals given how bad West Ham have been. Some of the memes about Graham Potter have been absolutely fantastic on Twitter. But I just think with the way West Ham are, defending recently, I can see Ndoye doing well, Chris Wood doing well. I think Gibbs White is also another good option if you're looking to pivot down from Parma with the injury. So that's probably the only other one. I think Newcastle as well, despite having, only 1 point from a draw and then a tough loss against Liverpool on Monday, I still think they look really good. And I think Leeds looked terrible against Arsenal. And I can see a lot of goals in that game. I think 1.5 is a little bit underestimated. And I think Newcastle are going to go there and probably score 2 or 3. And with Gordon out, I think someone like Harvey Barnes could also be a good option, but we can kind of touch on that in a little bit.
Yeah, that's the one where it's like, well, who do you want to pay up for? You'll probably have to make a transfer to make it happen. Who's even going to be starting at striker for Newcastle, even though it is a great fixture? The other one, I'm sure we'll get into it, is how do you feel about Villa this week? Once again, not delivering, blanks for Watkins, blanks for Rodgers. Are you concerned at all right now about Villa against this Palace team that's actually looked pretty strong defensively?
Yeah, it's one of the things I can't really get my head around, and it's one of the things I was going to ask you about as well, because for me, I think Morgan Rodgers and Ollie Watkins look like fantastic assets at the start of the season. And I think the main reason we picked, especially Ollie Watkins in my team at 9 million, is he's so consistently good across the season. He's going to score 16, I think in the last 4 or 5 seasons, he's averaged around 16 goals and can get numerous assists as well in a very good Aston Villa side under Emery. For me, though, 2 blanks in a row, and with the majority of the FPL community not being the most patient, you can see loads of managers transferring him out. And with the price differences being so tight at the start of the season, I'm not sure whether I want to wait and be patient. Obviously, we said we would be, and a fixture like Aston Villa at home against Crystal Palace should on paper be fantastic for Ollie Watkins. But the way that Villa's set up with, it seems like they're playing like 10 defensive mids behind Ollie Watkins. Tielemans playing in the 10. They've got McGinn, Camara. It seems like they've not really got the full flow which they had last season. I expect Emery's going to change it up and probably put Rodgers back in the 10 now, and Tielemans will drop deeper, and that therefore they're going to be more attacking and look like the Aston Villa of last season. But again, for me, there's a huge question mark over Ollie Watkins, and I'm personally thinking about pivoting to Ekitike, who just plays in the best attack in the league, starts at striker. We talked about him last week. We both love him as an asset. Why would we not just get a Liverpool? Obviously, they've got Arsenal at home this week, but then they go on to Burnley and Sunderland. And I just think Burnley and Everton, Sunderland, Everton. So I just think it's absolutely fantastic to Ekitike compared to Watkins. If there's already question marks over a player at 9 million, we can say the same about Bruno as well. But for me, I'm probably looking to offload Villa assets unless something drastically changes against Crystal Palace.
Okay. I mean, that's where this is hard, right? Depends where you're at. Depends how poorly your team started. We have both Rodgers and Watkins on the team right now. And I've thought about selling them, but it kind of depends on some of the other moves we have to make, and we can kind of get into that. But let's get into your watch list heading into game week 3, because there is a lot of things happening. We're going into international break. And of course, the biggest question is, what do you do with Bukayo Saka if you have him? And what do you do with Cole Palmer?
I think on the Saka and Palmer front, Saka is an easy sell for me. If he's out for at least 3 or 4 weeks at that price point, I think he's an easy sell. And if you have him in your team, he's the first player you sell this week, unless you have great bench depth and want to keep him in for the long run. Palmer is something which I haven't quite decided yet. We've got a few injury updates which say, Fulham might come slightly too soon. He might be an option, but he'll probably be back for Brentford after the international break. And I think it's a really tough, what do you hold? He's only going to miss one game week. We picked him as a great asset. There is question marks over how well he's been playing since, the likes of January in terms of open play goals. But I think Chelsea look like one of the best attacks in the league. So I would probably wait until we get the Maresca press conference on Thursday or Friday. Try and make a decision on whether he's going to play or not. And then if it's looking longer than the international break, he's probably a sell. But for now, he's on that border for me between sell and hold. But in terms of, I think we just kind of pulled together a quick cheat sheet for game week 3. Defense-wise, I think unless you're wildcarding, probably you'll want to be focused on the midfield and forwards, given just, the amount of fires that we need to put out this week. But at defense, there's a lot of players which I think I kind of like as underrated picks. And that's one, Tino Livramento. We spoke about him. Keen to get your views on him. And Senesi, who we said last week, he featured as our infographic, got 8 points again, got clean sheet, bonus, and DEFCON. So at 4.5 million, we picked the likes of Mario, Tarkowski at 5.5 million. But if 4.5 million defenders are getting the same clean sheets and DEFCONs, there's so much value there. And I just absolutely love Senesi as a pick. This Tottenham away fixture, probably not the best entry point, but after that, I think Bournemouth have fantastic fixtures. So for me, I'm looking to potentially pivot down a Maria to Senesi to free up 1 million into the midfielder attack. But I think for this week, I'm not focusing on defense too much. Virgil is an absolute DEFCON monster, but I just think Liverpool's fixtures. Yeah, I think he's great, and he gets clean sheet potential. The only question for me is how Liverpool look defensively when they were playing with Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, and McAllister. We don't really know how they're playing. They're conceding a lot of goals, and I think they've got really tough fixtures in the next few. So for me, I'm not sure whether a 4 points is worth 6 million every game if they're not going to keep clean sheets, and he doesn't really have much attacking threat anymore. So I think once Liverpool's fixtures turn, Virgil is a lock in my team, but for now, I'm probably going to just wait and see. Timber's absolutely fantastic. We saw, Arsenal just seem absolutely fixture-proof in terms of defensive. And we say this every season at the start, should we just pick Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and just get the points over the season? I still think that, Liverpool away now, and I think their fixtures don't change until game week 7, at which point I would want the likes of Saka, maybe Gyökeres if he's banging goals, Timber, Raya. So I think Timber he's already risen to 5.6, not a great entry point. I don't think it's worth going on in right now. And then out of the other few, I think Porro is fantastic with Bournemouth at home. Tarkowski I've had since the start of season because I think he's just in an Everton defence. They're conceding a lot of chances, but they're not conceding a lot of goals.
Yeah.
So I just think for a defender, Tarkowski gets, DEFCON pretty much guaranteed every game at this point. The first game we had it by 65 minutes. Last game we had it by 80 minutes. I absolutely love Tarkowski as a pick. Set and forget him for the season. He'll pick you 4 points, and when he gets a clean sheet, he can get upwards of 10 points. So I don't know if there's any on that list. I want to hear your thoughts on Tino. I probably want to hear your thoughts on Crystal Palace assets. But let's start with Tino.
Yeah, I mean, Tino looks great, right? He obviously got 3 bonus points in game week 1. The fixtures are really good for Newcastle for the next few games. It may be a little short term, but with how strong we've been defensively, I don't hate just having him. He's basically doing what Lewis Hall did last year, and now he's basically taking that left back spot and running with it. He plays 90, whether he's playing left back, right back, it doesn't matter, and he's creating chances, and he's probably never going to get DEFCON, but even with that, he's just playing so well. At 5 million, it's rare to have an asset that I think can return offensively and playing 90 every single game. It just seems so fixture proof right now. Basically right there with Lacroix. Like, I think you have the perfect wild card defensive options right now. I understand not want to go for Verge because the fixtures aren't great, but the DEFCON is just looking so good. You were completely right on Senesi. Like, there's no reason not to have him. The fixtures are so good. He gets DEFCON every game. Like, I'm worried they're going to concede goals, but if he's still getting DEFCON, it just doesn't matter. Timber, I'm kind of with you. I'm not really sold on him, especially because he's not necessarily guaranteed minutes, but hopefully he will going forward, especially with the way he played this week. The Liverpool fixture is not going to be a great one, but if you like him, I understand want to take the risk. I'd rather have Tarkowski. I like Munoz, 5 points in back-to-back game weeks. Poro, after this week, is when the fixtures really swing. I believe they have Burnley after this week, so it looks really good for them. And it's funny because I went in on Van de Ven at 4.5 when I should have went in on Senesi because he's going to get the DEFCON points much more regularly. But I don't hate having Tottenham defense just with how strong they've looked already. Like, it just looks like it's going to be so difficult to score on them. I think just having those assets potentially in your lineup for cheaper is always a great option. But I think if I was wildcarding right now, this is the defense I'd be looking at.
Damn, great insights. And midfield, I think it's good to move on to midfield. What I've done with the midfield is I've actually ordered it in terms of the assets left to right of what I'm favoriting at the minute in terms of a Palmer replacement or just general wildcard picks. And I think what's really interesting is you'll see the price points between, we kind of said it last week, 6.5 to 7.5 for the midfield looks absolutely fantastic. With the likes of Saka being injured, Palmer being injured, you've kind of got Salah at 14 million, and then you've got all of these budget picks. And I think what people are pivoting in terms of their team strategy now is drop Palmer to a 6.57, and then Mark Gui, who most people have as their third forward, up to a Chris Wood, Ekitike, and we can talk about the forwards in a little bit, and transfer strategy, because I'm keen to get your thoughts on. But from a midfield perspective, Semenyo I've had from the start in my team. I absolutely love him. Passes the eye test, great on the ball, scores goals, got another assist. Probably should have scored last game week as well. Hit the crossbar from like 2 yards out. So I think Tottenham away, not a great fixture if you're looking to sign him up this week. But after that, I think he's probably the best asset at 7 million for me. I absolutely love him. Ismail Assar, who I think most of the FPL content creators, Raptor, Harry, the other few, are all looking to move Cole Palmer down. If they get the injury update saying Palmer's out, I think most of them are moving down to Assar and then moving the 4.5 mid up to another striker, whoever that may be, Pedro, Wood, Ekitike. But interestingly, Sarr seems to be the favourite option amongst some of the most engaged managers playing FPL. And you can see why, because he's 6.5, scored last week against Nottingham Forest. Because of the way Palace play it with 5 at the back, allows Sarr, a lot of attacking threat, got really good underlying data. I think his expected goal involvement last season was fantastic. And at only 6.5 million, with Eze gone, it's going to be looking to Sarr to be like kind of the main talisman alongside Jean-Philippe Mateta. So those are probably the top 2. Interesting to hear your thoughts on Barnes, given that Gordon's out now with suspension. Kind of locks Barnes in at left wing, potentially even at striker. What's your thoughts on Harvey Barnes?
I mean, it's the funny thing about Barnes is that he's a great value. I just don't know how much I trust this team to score right now. They've already struggled to score without a striker. Barnes is basically cut inside and curl it in, or he's probably not going to do a whole lot. I think this team is surprisingly missing Murphy a little bit. Like, one of the big assets from this team last year was having Murphy going down the line and crossing balls in like crazy. And Elonga's tried to do that. And I'd love to see a lineup where you have Barnes, Elonga at striker for a couple games, and then have Murphy on the right side, because I think that could allow more attacking threat down the right side, and the crosses would be a little bit more consistent. And that's where Barnes was really good, is when Murphy was on the right, he crossed it over to the left. Maybe Isak didn't get a piece of it, and Barnes was waiting there to put it in the weeks that Gordon was out. And I think that's when he really thrived. And at 6.5, I just don't think he's involved enough. Like, I think I'd just rather have Sar. I'd rather go after Kudos, who's been great so far and has great fixtures. Yeah. I just don't think he's quite the pick, but if you're looking for a differential to kind of move up and you've been struggling so far, he could be the one, because I wouldn't be shocked if he just randomly scored 2 goals this week.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing, is he's a short-term punt as a differential to Sar. And I think Leeds away is a fantastic entry point, I guess, in comparison to Sar, even though Sar tends to do well and loves playing against Aston Villa. I think
he's scored against Villa like every game, right? Hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Something crazy. Like, he hasn't not scored or assisted against Villa ever. So, maybe Sar is the right option. I just think I like Barnes as a differential pick with the next 3 fixtures for Newcastle and maybe stepping up. And like you say, Barnes has the ability to get a 15-pointer. And if you own him and no one else does, you're really going to get up the ranks quite quickly. The other differential, which I've got my eye on, is Ouattara Dango for Brentford, with Mbeumo going and Whistler on strike.
I love it.
Dango moving from Bournemouth to Brentford. I just think he's an absolutely fantastic pick at 6 million. He started only like 17 games for Bournemouth, but his return in that period was absolutely fantastic. Like, he's almost getting a goal or assist every single game. He's only 6 million in the game, plays Sunderland next, and also he gets DEFCON points. He got 16 defensive contributions in 90 minutes as a midfielder. Yeah. So it's just absolutely crazy. Played midweek in the Cup as well, and only played a half and already got racked up between 6 and 8. So he was on track for DEFCON again. So he's like an attacking winger who scores goals, has Sunderland away, and also gets you potentially 4 points a game. Seems like an absolute cheat code that's going under the radar for me and no one's really looking at.
Man, that is... So it's funny, because I remember when he started for Bournemouth and he was just banging in goals every week. He was starting as striker. Yeah. And I thought maybe there's a world where they would use him as striker and he'd be a midfielder and we'd kind of just play off of that once again this season. But man, if he's going to get DEFCON as well, he's scoring goals. Like, he played at 83 minutes at Villa. Wow, that's 0.77 expected goals. This is our Ruder replacement, right? If you have Jorginho Ruder right now, who didn't play last week, this should be the guy. He's only owned in 0.8% of people's teams, Tom.
Yeah.
That's man, I'm sold. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my other plans, but I think he's got to be in the team. I think I'd rather have him than Kudos. I'd rather have him than Sar. He's got Chelsea at home, Fulham away, United at home, City at home. Like, the fixtures, they're not great, but they're not terrible, right? The only thing is he's probably never going to get any clean sheet points.
Yeah, exactly. But at that point, you're comparing him to like a Anderson at 5.5 million who doesn't, he gets the odd assist here and there, but you're buying him for DEFCON 4 points. If Dango's going to continue that streak, obviously it's a very small sample size, but he's getting 4 points and a goal. He's getting 10 points, 12, 13 potentially
plus bonus,
points.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, at like a 6 million price point. It's more of a risk than Ismail Assar at 6.5, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, no, I love that pick. I love it. So talk to me about Gakpo. No concerns about Isak, because if Isak signs, Gakpo's probably out of the starting squad at that point. I still prefer Mbeumo to Cunha, personally, based off of kind of what we've seen. I just think he's the better player. Like, people are all in on Cunha because he's so involved. He's playing up front. But when it came to scoring goals, who was the guy that actually got it done? It was Mbeumo, because he's one of the best goal scorers in the Prem right now. I just trust him to score, and that's that. And even especially at 8 mil, he hasn't risen yet. The moment he scores a goal, he's going up in price, right? I like Gakpo too, though. The way he's playing with Ekitike is just probably the best two-way players right now, like just attacking threat. On the Liverpool side, it's certainly not Salah and Ekitike right now. Gakpo is a great value at 7.6. I just don't know if I want to quite pay up and have him in the midfield. I'd probably rather pivot down to Semenyo, Dango, or Sar, just to kind of save a bit of funds and invest in other places.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you said earlier about Harvey Barnes, he doesn't do much. He stays on the side, he cuts in and curls one in. That's all he does. So that's pretty much Salah this season and the end of last season. So I kind of like Gakpo and Ekitike as more exciting picks for Liverpool. The question over Isaac is I would wait and see, because I think if he comes in, Gakpo becomes a lot less desirable pick.
Yeah.
His 2 assists this season have been layoffs to other players.
Yeah.
So I just think Ekitike looks like a far more exciting pick in that Liverpool lineup. The one thing which I'm also concerned about Ekitike is if Isaac comes in, does he then play on the left, or does
I
Gakpo play on the
think
left
he
and you drop
would play on the
Ekitike?
left.
Yeah.
It seems like the
Okay.
plan is to play Ekitike on the left if Isak comes in. Or maybe would Isak want to play on the left? I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah, exactly. And he can do so. Really interesting to see, but I think you're right in saying Ekitike seems like an exciting pick. Gakpo spent a lot of time on the bench last season. Gakpo probably drops out, but the minutes are all kind of managed again, and you're getting a 60, 70-minute player. But in a
Yeah.
Liverpool attack, it's not necessarily a bad thing when they're capable of scoring 5 goals. Last thing before we go on to forwards is, like we mentioned, Mbeumo and Cunha, completely on side with you. I would pick on Mbeumo. He's a more consistent player. Cunha can be very streaky and very good in terms of like
Yeah.
consistent returns, but I just don't think at the level of Mbeumo, who's just capable of dropping up, good consistent finishing, scored a lot more goals last season. Cunha has the ability to get a red card and not really impact a game as much as Mbeumo. So for me, Mbeumo. But keen to get your views on the forward lineup. I've kind of ranked these again in my favorite options, but say for instance you're thinking of selling a Palmer and down to a low midfield like Semenyo or Sarr, who do you then upgrade your third attacker to out of these 5? For me, that's the order: Haaland, Wood, Ekitike, Pedro, Mateta. But keen to see your view on that.
Yeah, it's tough because so the problem for me really is I want it to be Ekitike, but I believe he's already even 8.7 mil, Wood 7.7 mil. Like Pedro hasn't quite got to that price tag. So I think if I can make it work, I'd rather just go after Pedro. He's a bit cheaper. The fixtures are still great.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want Mateta. He's got reasonable fixtures, but this team has really struggled to kind of generate a lot of chances for him. I think losing Eze makes his job a little more difficult because he's great when they're trying to get out of their end, and he can be that guy that lays it off to the midfielders and then they counter, but they haven't done a great job of getting him the ball, unfortunately. Munoz hasn't been able to find him on crosses. He hasn't had too many chances, but he's still going to score goals eventually. Like they have Sunderland at home, West Ham away. He'll probably score in both those fixtures, but that's in the middle of the Villa away, which I don't think he's necessarily going to score there, and then he has Liverpool at home, which obviously is going to be tough for him as well, dealing with Virgil van Dijk. I like Wood a lot. I like Ekitike. Obviously love Haaland. It's so tough because I really, really want to say Ekitike, but with the rises, I think it's going to be a lot harder to make it happen. But let's be honest, after this week, he's going up again. Like there's no way more people don't say Burnley fixture after international break, Ekitike is going to be 8.8 mil, and it'll be probably no time if they don't have Isak before he's 9 mil, right? So do you think you potentially lose out on maybe another player in your lineup because you're trying to make it work with the price to get Ekitike in, or do you think you should stay with a Wood or a Pedro?
Yeah, I think this is the really tough balance this year is, do you want to let you pick the player at the start, do you want the consistency? Do you want to just be patient? But then again, these players like Ekitike, 8.5, he's already 8.7, like you say, probably going to be 8.8 after the international break. Chris Wood, 7.5. People held Bowen. Bowen drops to 7.9, now 7.8. Wood's up to 7.7 already. So it's kind of crazy to think, the patience is there, but you're missing out on players who, could potentially pick early, rise in price, and, have the form and now fixtures. So for me, I think it's interesting when you say you'd go for Pedro. I actually think Chris Wood's probably the better asset at that price point. Okay. Just given he plays 90 minutes guaranteed. Chelsea, obviously with Palmer injured, Pedro becomes a much better asset, probably on penalties as well. But if Palmer's back soon, Pedro and Delap share minutes. You've got Xavi Simons potentially coming in. What does that mean for the system? A little bit more question marks. Fulham are a good defence, but I imagine Pedro will probably score against Fulham. But I equally think Wood will score against West Ham, and arguably the best captain for this game week up alongside Erling Haaland. So it's a very difficult one. And I think on Ekitike, one thing which I'm thinking about, you mentioned the price point. Is it even worth just selling Ollie Watkins if you own him to Ekitike now, get the price rises and save a little bit of money to invest elsewhere?
Well, that's what I think we're going to have to gamble on in our team, right? Is that we have Watkins. I think I'm fine keeping him for this week. Like, just to have that Palace fixture, pray he scores, and if he does, I'd probably still sell him, just because I don't want to waste the additional transfer this week. But it's very tempting. Like, he should be 9 mil. Like, he's easily one of the best players on this Liverpool team, which is insane to have only played 2 games right now, but he's just played so well. I just don't see a world where he doesn't continue to do it. We thought against Newcastle he may struggle because of the environment. It's going to be crazy, and it was, and he still delivered for you. So with the fixtures turning, I think it only looks better for him, but you're right on Wood. Like, Wood is a player that I never want to own, but he's just going to bang in goals, and I hate it. Like, I hate it so much because the fixtures for them are so good with West Ham, Burnley, and Sunderland in the next 4. The only one is the tough Arsenal fixture. But if you can maybe navigate that with a deeper bench, dropping a Palmer down, dropping a Saka down, whatever you got to do, like, he's going to score probably 4 goals in those 3 fixtures at least. At least.
Yeah, and so you get bonus. And a lot of people on free hit 4 anyway. So if that's your strategy is to free hit in 4, you're kind of getting West Ham, Burnley, Sunderland, and a free hit team. I think Wood's fantastic on penalties. You watched Forest, and he's a frustrating player to own because when I've had him in the past, he doesn't do much, but then he just crops up with a tap in, a header, a penalty, and he's already got 9 points in your team. So I just think with Forest looking like they're going to play well against this season with good fixtures coming up, I think Wood, for me, I'm leaning towards less risk with Pedro over minutes and everything about Chelsea's system. And I just want a 90-minute man who plays at striker on penalties in a decent team. So I don't want the headache of maybe transferring out Pedro down the line. I think I'm going to go with Chris Wood.
Yeah, no, I can see that for sure. So let's move on to our team, Tom, to kind of our final thoughts as we head into this game week. But so I was looking at Ekitike's price, fixtures and everything. Obviously, the swing is what you're looking for after the Arsenal game. But I already put Dango in the lineup, right? He's replacing Ruder there. So what do you want to do with Palmer? What do you feel about Watkins and Rodgers? And then last but not least, the biggest question in the room is Bruno Fernandes. Missed pen, playing center back for Man United. They don't look good. They don't score goals. Yeah. He did get DEFCON last week, but like, what are we doing with him? Because I feel like we have so many other issues. We only have obviously the 2 transfers. We might transfer out Palmer. What do we do with Bruno? Do we have to just ride it out for this fixture?
Yeah, I think if Bruno scores that penalty and he comes away with 12 points, we aren't even having this conversation. So I think with Burnley at home, there's no point selling him and taking a hit or otherwise. I think you just leave him for Burnley at home and we assess after that game what we do with Bruno. So I think that's an easy set and forget. Burnley at home is still a great fixture. I can see him getting an assist, a goal. Man United might bounce back. They equally might not. And then, we can sell him. But I think Palmer's probably the main thing. I think I agree with Ollie Watkins. Let's not sell him ahead of Palace. It would have been nice to jump on Ekitike, but I think Watkins at Palace is a better fixture than Ekitike at Arsenal, even though I could see Liverpool still doing well and probably scoring goals and maybe winning that game. I think it makes sense to let's focus on leave Watkins and Rodgers for one more game week. Let's see how they perform. I think Pedro's great for Fulham. I think Haaland's great at Brighton. I think Rutter to Dango makes sense. The only question then for us is, do we sell Palmer to a Ismail Assar or otherwise? And then we've got the money to, invest elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? Is we sell Palmer. I mean, we could probably even find a way to work our way into Salah at that point, but we probably need to have 2 to 3 transfers, take a hit, etc. For me, like, I'm fine holding on to him. I think this team doesn't have a super high ceiling, depending on what happens with that front line. But if that front line hits, like, we'll probably be fine, right? Pedro got us 15 points. We were only on 50. We were about average in terms of FPL standards, but it wasn't a death sentence by any stretch. We have 4 midfielders who can play if we need to. We'll start Palmer and King will fit in. If he has to, he plays. He's going to get us 2 points probably for sure. And then we have a solid defense, right? What do you want to do with Forest defense? Are you basically going to sell them if they don't deliver this week, or would you hold through the Arsenal fixture?
I think I'm giving Murillo one more chance against West Ham because he's averaging last season 11 defensive contributions a game. This season only 5. So I think there is a big question mark if you're holding up 5.5 million in a defender which isn't keeping you clean sheets and isn't getting you defensive contributions, where Tarkowski's doing both, Senesi's doing both. you can get Munoz or Porro as an attacking defender instead and getting you clean sheets or assists. I think Murillo's on fraud watch for me, and this is the last week. If you can't keep a clean sheet against West Ham or you can't get defensive contributions, I think it's probably a downgrade to Senesi and spread the funds.
Yeah, and let's be real, for game week 1, Forest should have had a clean sheet. They had an unfortunate handball in the box that led to a pen, and the clean sheet was wiped in like the 85th minute. So they should have at least one, at least defensively. They've been pretty strong. Last week, it wasn't quite as good. But I think for this team, we don't have to change a lot. Like, I don't want to overreact. I understand people are selling Watkins or selling Rodgers. I just don't want to go that crazy. I think we start Palmer this week. If he plays, great. If he doesn't, we'll have our subs in order. And I think we pivot to Ekitike next week before he rises after this game week. I think that's probably the play in terms of going forward. That's what I'm probably going to do for this team. It seems like you agree. And then it's just kind of how we manage the rest of the potential transfers that follow that.
Yeah, sounds sensible. I'm on board.
Perfect. So let's lock that in. And who do you want to captain for this week? Do you want to go back to Haaland after he burned us?
I think it's got to be Haaland. Everyone got burned last week by captaincy. I think Brighton have conceded the most chances. They look shaky in defence. I think City will, Tottenham looked fantastic, but I think Brighton is a different question. And I think everyone there, some people are picking Bruno, but I think with questions over United, if Bruno does well, let's just treat it as a bonus. Let's not captain him.
Yeah.
It would be between Pedro and Haaland for me, and I think I'd probably lean towards Haaland.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we're just going to roll with Haaland there. We have Dubravka in net, so probably don't want to captain Bruno Fernandes just in case they do get that clean sheet. But I'm in lockstep with you. I think adding Dango to the team for Reuter as a replacement is great. That way we don't have to double sub this week if Palmer doesn't play. And I think that's pretty much it for this game week. But Tom, do you have any final thoughts for the people before we head out of here?
No, I'm just loving the Coventry City top. I know a few of the fans will be happy to see that.
Had to show some love to Coventry after that big performance over the weekend. Didn't get it done in the cup, but we're not going to talk about that. Thank you everybody for tuning in to this game week preview for game week 3. Hope all of your transfers are successful and hopefully your captain's picks are the right ones. We will see you guys next week. Thank you to Tom for joining us while on vacation. Like and subscribe, and we're out. Peace.
Peace.